The massive ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning, its shadow darkening the skies over every major city on Earth. No one had seen it coming. No radar had picked it up. It simply appeared, hanging in the sky like a metal continent. Admiral James Stone stood at the window of Earth Defense Force headquarters, his coffee growing cold in his hand. 28 years of military service hadn't prepared him for this moment. The alien vessel stretched from horizon to horizon, its surface a pattern of geometric shapes that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "Sir," his aide called from behind him, "the UN Security Council is waiting." Stone nodded, his weathered face reflecting in the window. "Tell them I'm on my way." He took one last look at the ship. Whatever happened next would change humanity forever. The emergency meeting was already in chaos when he arrived. Representatives from every major nation shouted over each other, their faces red with fear and anger. Stone took his seat quietly, watching. The Chinese military chief was arguing with the Russian ambassador about jurisdiction. The American president was on video call, her face pale with worry. Then it happened. Every screen in the room flickered to life at once. Every phone, every tablet, every device capable of displaying an image showed the same thing. A tall, gray-skinned figure with large, dark eyes. Its voice came through every speaker, somehow perfectly translated into each listener's native language. "People of Earth," it said, "I am High Speaker Gray of the Galactic Council. Your world has been classified as a Class 3 developing species. As per Council Regulation 7249, you are hereby ordered to integrate into our collective." Stone felt his stomach tighten. There was no greeting, no diplomatic opening. Just orders. "Your technological progress has been monitored," High Speaker Gray continued. "You have reached the threshold requiring intervention. Resistance is inadvisable. Previous species who refused integration have been archived." The room erupted again, but Stone kept his eyes on the screen. He noticed something in the alien's expression, not concern for Earth's well-being, but something closer to hunger. "You have 24 hours to assemble your world's leaders for formal submission protocols. We will then begin the integration process." The alien's dark eyes seemed to stare directly at Stone. "Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Stone stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "before we tear ourselves apart with panic, I suggest we look at what we know." He walked to the center of the room, all eyes following him. They didn't come to make friends. They didn't come to share knowledge. They came with demands and threats. He let that sink in. "In my experience, anyone who demands immediate submission while making threats isn't interested in your welfare." The Chinese general, Lai, nodded slowly. "They call us Class 3, like we are livestock to be categorized." "And what does archived mean?" the British Prime Minister added, her voice shaking slightly. Stone looked up at the ceiling, where the massive ship would be hovering above them. "I think we all know what it means. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" The American president's voice came through the speakers. "We need to buy time. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "Agreed," Stone said. "But we also need to prepare for the worst. This Galactic Council didn't cross the stars to make a social call. They want something from us, and I doubt it's just our friendship." He turned to face the assembled leaders. "I recommend we appear to cooperate while gathering as much information as possible. Every moment they're talking is a moment we can use to prepare." The room had grown quiet, the earlier panic replaced by a grim determination. Stone could see it in their faces, the realization that humanity's greatest test had just begun. As if to emphasize his point, the shadow of the ship darkened further, plunging the room into an artificial twilight. Somewhere in the distance, church bells began to ring, their sound a mournful reminder of simpler times. The first day of Earth's last age of innocence was coming to an end. The meeting room felt colder than usual. Dr. Emma Wells watched as High Speaker Gray's hologram towered over the assembled world leaders, its gray skin seeming to shimmer in the artificial light. The alien had been listing the Council's demands for the past hour, each new requirement worse than the last. 30% of your working population will be relocated to Council facilities, Gray announced, its voice emotionless. This is non-negotiable. Emma noticed Admiral Stone's knuckles turning white as he gripped his chair. She understood his anger. They weren't just talking about numbers. They were talking about billions of people. And what exactly will these workers be doing? Stone asked, keeping his voice steady. The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. They will serve the greater good of the Council. Their assignments will be determined by their abilities and our needs. Emma typed quickly on her tablet, adding this to her growing list of demands. As Earth's leading AI researcher, she had been asked to analyze the Council's terms. So far, everything pointed to one conclusion: slavery. Gray continued, additionally, all military forces must be disbanded immediately. Council guardians will provide protection for your world. The hologram waved its hand, and a new image appeared. The guardians looked like walking tanks, 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Your artificial intelligence research must also cease, Gray added, looking directly at Emma. Such technology is restricted to Class 1 species only. Emma stood up, unable to contain herself. Our AI systems help manage our power grids, our medical facilities, You will be provided with acceptable alternatives, Gray interrupted. Council-approved systems will be installed. The Russian president spoke next, his voice tight with controlled anger. And our resources, our minerals, our energy sources. All planetary resources will be allocated according to Council guidelines. You will receive your fair share. Gray's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. The Council protects its members. Emma looked down at her tablet, running calculations. Between the workforce demands, resource control, and technology restrictions, Earth would effectively become a mining colony. She caught Stone's eye and gave a slight shake of her head. He nodded, understanding. There is one more thing, Gray said. We have detected unusual energy signatures beneath your surface. All underground facilities must be opened for inspection. Emma felt her heart skip. Project Phoenix was supposed to be undetectable. If they found the bunkers. Stone stepped forward. Many of our underground structures are ancient mining operations, long abandoned. They're quite dangerous. Perhaps we could provide you with our surveys instead. Gray's eyes narrowed. The Guardians will conduct their own inspections. Safety is not a concern. Emma watched as one of the Guardian holograms demonstrated its capabilities, smashing through a simulated concrete wall like it was paper. The message was clear. Resistance would be futile. You have 48 hours to begin implementation, Gray announced. The Council is generous, but delays will not be tolerated. We have archived civilizations for less. After the hologram vanished, the room erupted in whispered conversations. Emma made her way to Stone, showing him her analysis. It's worse than we thought, she whispered. Their technology, it's not just advanced, it's designed for control. These Council-approved systems, they want to install. They're monitoring devices. They'll see everything, control everything. Stone looked out the window at the massive ship still hovering overhead. How many other civilizations do you think fell for this? Accepted their protection, only to become slaves. Emma pulled up another file on her tablet, this one heavily encrypted. That's not the worst part. I've been analyzing their ship's energy emissions. They're familiar, Admiral. Too familiar. Stone's eyes widened as he looked at her data. These patterns, they match the artifacts we found in the Mars ruins. Emma nodded grimly. Exactly. The Council didn't come here by chance. They've been watching us, waiting. And I don't think we're the first civilization on Earth they've protected. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the city. But the true darkness, Emma knew, was still to come. Humanity had 48 hours to make its choice, submit to eternal servitude, or find another way. As she watched the Guardian hologram pace the room, its heavy footsteps echoing, Emma silently thanked God that Project Phoenix was nearly ready. They would need it sooner than anyone had expected. Dr. Emma Wells' hands shook as she stared at her computer screen. The laboratory was dark except for the glow of monitors, but she didn't dare turn on more lights. What she had just discovered couldn't be seen by the Council's watching eyes. Marcus, she called quietly to Intelligence Officer Marcus Reed, who was guarding her door. You need to see this. Marcus moved silently across the room, his military training evident in every step. He looked over her shoulder at the screen, his face illuminated by the eerie green glow of the decoded alien data. Are you sure about this? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Emma nodded, scrolling through the files she had extracted from the Council's communication systems. Look at these numbers. These aren't just records. They're death counts. The screen showed a list of civilizations, each marked with dates and statistics. Hundreds of them. Thousands, all marked as archived. This one, Emma pointed to a recent entry. The Centauri system. Population, 12 billion. Status, archived. Reason, resistance to integration. She scrolled down. And this one, the Proxima colony. Population, 8 billion. Status, archived. Reason, resource depletion. Marcus leaned closer. Resource depletion, but they were supposed to get their fair share under Council protection. That's just it, Emma said, pulling up another file. The Council doesn't protect, it consumes. Look at these energy readings from archived worlds. The screen filled with graphs showing planetary energy signatures. Each one followed the same pattern. A sharp spike in energy use, then nothing. Complete silence. They're not just taking workers, Emma explained, her voice trembling. They're taking everything. Life force, resources, technology. They drain planets dry, then move on to the next one. A quiet beep from Marcus's device made them both freeze. Guardian Patrol, he whispered. 3 minutes out. Emma quickly began transferring the files to a quantum-encrypted drive. There's more. The Council, they're not the first ones to do this. They're just the latest. Every few million years, a new species rises up and becomes the Council. They dominate until they're overthrown or destroyed. Marcus watched the door nervously. How do you know all this? Because, Emma said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. I found messages, hidden in the background radiation of their communications. Messages from the Resistance, other species fighting back. And, she paused, looking up at Marcus. Messages from Earth, ancient ones. The sound of heavy mechanical footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. The Guardians were getting closer. We're not the first humans to face them, Emma continued, her voice urgent. They've been here before. Those mass extinctions in Earth's history, not all of them were natural. Our ancestors fought them off, but the cost. Marcus helped her erase all traces of their work from the computer. How much time do we have? Based on their patterns. Emma clutched the encrypted drive. Once integration begins, maybe 6 months before they start the real harvest. Unless. The footsteps were right outside now. Emma quickly pressed a hidden button under her desk, opening a small panel in the wall. Unless what? Marcus whispered, helping her hide their evidence. Unless we do what our ancestors did, what the Resistance suggested. She looked at him, her eyes hard with determination. We could burn it all down. Make Earth so uninhabitable that they can't harvest anything. Go deep underground where they can't follow. The door began to slide open. Emma quickly pulled up some harmless research data on her screen. 2 Guardian units entered, their black armor seeming to suck the light from the room. Their red sensor arrays scanned everything, including Emma and Marcus. Routine inspection. The first Guardian announced in its mechanical voice. Continue your approved activities. Emma pretended to work while the Guardians moved around the lab. Inside her pocket, the encrypted drive felt like it was burning with the truth it contained. A truth that would soon force humanity to make an impossible choice. After the Guardians left, Marcus turned to her. How long until you can get this information to Admiral Stone? Emma checked her watch. 1 hour. Then we'll know if humanity is ready to choose death over slavery. She looked out her window at the council ship hovering in the sky. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be the ones who finally break their cycle. In the distance, the sun was rising, but its light seemed dimmer under the shadow of the council ship. Time was running out, and humanity's greatest gamble was about to begin. The underground command center buzzed with tension as General Diana Taylor studied the global voting results appearing on the massive screen. Each number represented millions of human lives, all facing the same impossible choice: submission or destruction. 72 hours, she muttered, watching the countdown timer in the corner of the screen. The Council certainly doesn't believe in giving us time to think. Admiral Stone stood beside her, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the monitors. They never do. Dr. Wells' data proved that. Every civilization that asked for more time was marked as resistant and archived. The door slid open, and Dr. Emma Wells rushed in with Marcus Reed close behind. Her face was flushed with excitement or fear, perhaps both. Project Phoenix is ready, she announced, spreading digital maps across the main display. All 18 underground archaeology sites are fully operational. We can house 30% of Earth's population immediately, with room for expansion. General Taylor zoomed in on one of the massive underground cities, and the Council can't detect them. No, Emma replied. The energy shielding works. To their sensors, these just look like old mine shafts and natural caverns. But there's something else you need to see. She pulled up new data, showing the Council ship's energy readings. They're already starting. Look at these patterns. They're preparing for harvest, even before the official integration begins. Bastards, Marcus whispered. They never planned to honor their terms. Admiral Stone's face hardened. General Taylor, what's the status of the surface evacuation? Taylor brought up another map, this one showing population movements across the globe. Tiny dots of light represented groups of people being secretly relocated. We've moved 15% of the selected population underground, she reported. All essential personnel, key scientists, doctors, engineers. Another 10% are ready for immediate evacuation. But the rest? She paused, looking at the billions of dots still scattered across the surface. We can't save everyone, Stone said quietly. Not if we want this to work. The room fell silent. On the main screen, the voting results continued to update. Earth's population was making their choice, even though they didn't know the full plan. Emma stepped forward. The resistance messages were clear. The only civilizations that survived the Council were the ones willing to sacrifice everything on the surface, to make their planets too costly to harvest. And that's what Project Phoenix really is, Taylor added. Not just underground cities, but a way to burn our own house down, Stone finished. So they can't take it from us. Marcus checked his tactical display. Guardian patrols are increasing. They're suspicious of the population movements. Taylor pressed a button, bringing up the final evacuation protocols. We need to make the call. Either we submit and watch them drain our world until nothing remains, or we choose our own way to die, Stone said firmly. And in doing so, find a way to live. The voting results suddenly flashed. Final numbers were in. 87% of Earth's population had rejected Council integration, even without knowing the full plan. Humanity had chosen resistance. Send the signal, Stone ordered. All essential personnel begin final evacuation. Non-essential surface structures switch to minimum power. Make it look like we're preparing to submit. Emma pulled up Project Phoenix's master controls. Underground reactors are ready. Life support systems all green. Agricultural sectors operational. We can sustain our population for at least a century down there. And the surface? Marcus asked quietly. Taylor's finger hovered over a red button on her console. Operation Scorched Earth remains our last resort. If they don't buy our deception, if they try to force their way in, then we burn it all, Stone said. Every city, every forest, every drop of water. Make Earth so toxic that even their advanced technology can't harvest anything useful. Emma looked at the surface map one last time, at all the places humanity had called home for thousands of years. Our ancestors did this before. Made Earth impossible to harvest. That's why the dinosaurs disappeared. Nuclear winter was better than slavery. The countdown timer blinked. 48 hours remaining. Send the evacuation codes, Taylor ordered. Priority 1 citizens first, and pray we can fool them long enough to get our people to safety. Above them, miles of rock and metal shielding hid them from the Council's watching eyes. Soon, humanity would either pull off the greatest deception in its history or trigger the most devastating defensive action ever taken. The choice had been made. Now they just had to survive it. Tom Cooper stood in the empty streets of New York City, watching the last groups of civilians disappear into the hidden entrance of an old subway station. As the civilian resistance coordinator, he had spent the last 24 hours orchestrating what looked like normal city life, while secretly evacuating millions. Last group from Sector 7 is in. He spoke quietly into his hidden communicator. How's our show looking from above? Guardian patrols are buying it. Marcus Reed's voice crackled back. The holograms are working. They see exactly what we want them to see. Crowds going about their daily business. Tom looked up at the massive council ship still hovering above the city. Its dark surface seemed to ripple like liquid metal. Around him, sophisticated holograms projected images of people walking, talking, and going about their normal lives. But the real people were now deep underground. His communicator buzzed again. This is Dr. Wells. Tom, we need you underground now. The Council's representatives are landing for their final inspection. On my way, he replied, making his way to the hidden entrance. Just as he reached it, he heard the distinctive sound of Guardian drop pods hitting the streets nearby. From his new hiding spot, Tom watched as 3 Guardians emerge, their black armor gleaming. They began scanning the area, their red sensors sweeping across the holographic crowds. Movement patterns normal, one Guardian reported. Human activity consistent with previous observations. Tom held his breath. The holograms were Dr. Wells' masterpiece, recordings of real human movements, adjusted to look completely natural. Each fake person even gave off the right heat signature. His communicator vibrated silently. Admiral Stone's voice came through. High Speaker Gray is beginning the integration ceremony. All surface teams maintain positions. In the council ship above, humanity's representatives stood before High Speaker Gray, appearing to accept the terms of submission. It was all part of the plan. Keep the council distracted with ceremonies while the real work happened below. Underground status. Tom whispered into his communicator. 97% of designated population secured. General Taylor responded. Project Phoenix is ready. Now we just need to sell this lie for a few more hours. Tom watched as more Guardian patrols moved through the streets. They passed right by his hiding spot, their sensors fooled by the sophisticated shielding technology. Suddenly, one of the Guardians stopped. It turned its head toward a nearby building. Anomaly detected, it announced. Energy signature inconsistent with reported patterns. Tom's heart raced. One of the hologram projectors must be failing. This is Cooper, he whispered urgently. We have a problem in Sector 7. Before anyone could respond, the Guardian approached the building. Its armored hand reached out toward the wall. Then, as if by miracle, a series of explosions rocked the financial district several blocks away. The Guardians immediately turned toward the sound. Multiple incidents detected. They announced in unison, investigating. As the Guardians moved away, Emma's voice came through. Automated distraction protocols working. The explosions are controlled, just enough to keep them busy. Tom let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Clever. Making them think some humans are actually resisting on the surface. Exactly, Emma replied. They expect some resistance. A completely peaceful submission would look suspicious. Above, the integration ceremony continued. High Speaker Gray droned on about the benefits of council membership, completely unaware that the humans before them were just the final players in humanity's greatest deception. Surface teams. Update. General Taylor's voice came through. Sector 7, clear, Tom reported. Similar confirmations came in from around the world. Cities everywhere were now effectively empty, maintained only by holograms and automated systems. Final phase beginning, Admiral Stone announced. All remaining surface personnel proceed to secure locations immediately. Tom took one last look at the city he'd grown up in. The holographic crowds continued their endless loop, making New York look alive and bustling. But the real New York, the real humanity, was now hidden far below, waiting to see if their desperate gamble would work. As he descended into the underground complex, Tom thought about how strange history was. Humanity had spent thousands of years building upward, reaching for the stars. Now, their only hope for survival was to dig deep and hide in the Earth's embrace. The massive blast doors sealed behind him with a final heavy thud. Dr. Robert Kane watched the massive wall of monitors in Project Phoenix's central control room. Each screen showed a different city on Earth's surface, all still maintained by their elaborate hologram system. But the Council had finally noticed something was wrong. They're starting their scan, Emma reported, her fingers flying over the control panel. Full planetary sweep. Through the surveillance system, they could see the Guardian units moving more aggressively now, their scanners probing deeper into empty buildings. The hologram projectors were working overtime to maintain the illusion of human activity. How long until they figure it out? Admiral Stone asked, standing behind them. Robert checked his calculations. Minutes. The deeper scans will show that the heat signatures are fake. We need to make the call now. High above them, the Council ship had changed position. Its smooth surface was now bristling with what looked like weapons. High Speaker Gray's voice boomed through every remaining communication system on the surface. Your deception has been detected, the alien announced. This violation of Council law will result in immediate archival procedures. Surrender your population centers now. Admiral Stone nodded grimly. They're going to start bombing soon. Looking for our real locations, he turned to General Taylor. Are we ready? All bunkers report sealed and secure, she confirmed. Operation Scorched Earth is armed and waiting for your command. Robert pulled up the master controls for Project Phoenix. On his screen, 200 separate underground arcologies showed green status. Nearly 3 billion humans were now hidden safely below the surface, protected by miles of specially treated rock and advanced shielding technology. The first explosion rocked the surface world. Through their cameras, they watched as Guardian ships began systematic bombardment of major cities. They're trying to force us out, Emma said. Make us run from the bunkers in panic. Robert smiled sadly. They still don't understand what we're willing to do. Another explosion, bigger this time. The Council ships were getting serious. Sir, Marcus called from his station. They're starting to detect some of our deeper structures. The bombing is getting more precise. Admiral Stone straightened his uniform. Then it's time. Dr. Kane, begin Operation Scorched Earth. Robert's hands shook slightly as he entered his authorization code. Beginning final surface protocols. All personnel clear upper levels. On the screens, they watched as their own defensive measures activated. Thousands of hidden devices began releasing carefully designed compounds into the atmosphere. Special bacteria, engineered viruses, and chemical agents, all designed to make Earth's surface uninhabitable to the Council's harvesting technology. Contamination procedures at 20%, Robert reported. Surface toxicity rising. High Speaker Gray's voice came again, this time with a note of confusion. Your actions are illogical. You are destroying your own world. No, Admiral Stone muttered. We're saving it, just not for you. The Council ships intensified their bombing, trying to stop the contamination spread, but it was too late. The compounds were airborne, multiplying, changing the very chemistry of Earth's surface. Contamination at 50%, Robert announced. No turning back now. They watched as the Council ship's sensors detected the changing atmosphere. Several ships pulled back, their harvesting equipment suddenly useless against the toxic soup Earth was becoming. You will die here, High Speaker Gray transmitted. Your species will end. Emma laughed bitterly. They still haven't found us. They can't believe we'd go this deep. The final stages of Operation Scorched Earth began. Automated systems released the last of their weapons. Not bombs or missiles, but biological and chemical agents designed to make Earth's surface permanently unusable for Council technology. Contamination at 90%, Robert reported. Surface readings are off the charts. Nothing up there will be harvestable for at least 1,000 years. The Council ships began to retreat, their weapons falling silent. On the monitors, they could see Earth's surface changing. The sky had taken on a sickly green tinge. The ground was becoming toxic sludge. They're leaving, Marcus announced, watching the radar. All Council ships ascending. Admiral Stone touched the screen showing their dying world. How many civilizations, I wonder, chose slavery because they couldn't bear to do this? We're not dead, General Taylor reminded him. We're just changing addresses. Underground cities are all reporting stable conditions, hydroponics running at full capacity, nuclear power plants operational. Robert looked at his final readings. Earth's surface was now completely uninhabitable to the Council's harvesting technology. They had done it. They had chosen death for their world's surface to preserve life below. And now, he said quietly, we wait. We adapt. We survive. Under their feet. The screen showed the last Council ship disappearing into space, leaving behind a planet they thought they had killed. But deep below, humanity lived on, waiting for the day they could reclaim their world. 1 year had passed since Earth's surface died. In the deep underground city of Haven 1, Dr. Emma Wells stood before the Council of Survivors, presenting her latest findings. The surface remains completely toxic to Council harvesting technology, she explained, showing holographic images of the wasteland above. Our satellites confirm no signs of their return. Earth is, by their standards, a dead world. Admiral Stone, now aged by stress, but still standing tall, nodded approvingly. And our people? Thriving, General Taylor answered, pulling up population statistics. Birth rates are stable. Food production exceeds expectations. The underground cities are operating at peak efficiency. The massive chamber, carved from solid rock and reinforced with advanced materials, hummed with the sound of life support systems. 3 billion humans now lived in these underground arcologies, building a new civilization beneath the poisoned surface. But that's not why we called this meeting, Emma said, her eyes bright with excitement. Show them, Marcus. Intelligence Officer Marcus Reed stepped forward, activating a new hologram. 2 days ago, we detected this transmission. It was broadcast across all frequencies, using the Council's own communication network. The hologram showed scenes from various worlds across the galaxy. Alien civilizations, all previously under Council control, rising up in rebellion. They're fighting back, Marcus explained. Our choice, our sacrifice. It showed them it was possible to resist. We're not the first civilization to choose death over submission, but we're the first to survive it. The images showed Council ships retreating from multiple worlds. Some alien species had copied Earth's strategy, making their surfaces toxic. Others had found different ways to resist, but all were inspired by the same story. The Council's power is breaking, Admiral Stone observed. Their perfect record of control is shattered. Robert Kane, the architect of their underground world, spoke up from his seat. We've received messages from 17 different species asking for our help, our technology. They want to know how we did it. And the Council's response? Someone asked. Emma changed the hologram to show the Council's main fleet. They're scattered, trying to maintain control over too many rebellions at once. For the first time in 10,000 years, they're losing their grip. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some wanted to help the other species directly. Others advised caution. Admiral Stone raised his hand for silence. We built this world to survive, not just hide. Dr. Wells, what's the status of Project Rebirth? Emma pulled up new diagrams. The surface decontamination systems are ready. Once the Council is truly defeated, we can begin cleansing the Earth. It will take decades, but we can restore our world. And in the meantime, Marcus added, our deep space communications array is ready. We can coordinate with other resistant species, share knowledge, build alliances. Tom Cooper, who had helped save millions during the evacuation, stood up. The Council thought they could break us. Instead, we broke their power. Every species that resists now tells the same story, of how humanity chose to poison their own world rather than submit. We didn't just save ourselves, General Taylor said quietly. We started a revolution. The chamber's massive screens showed their new underground civilization. Hydroponic farms stretching for miles, fusion reactors powering entire cities, children being born and raised in carefully designed habitats. They had not just survived, they had found a way to thrive. The Council's message was clear. Admiral Stone addressed the chamber. Submit or die. But we found a third option. We chose how to die, and in doing so, found a new way to live. Emma stepped forward one last time. And now, a year later, we've proven something incredible. The Council isn't invincible. Their power isn't absolute. And sometimes, she smiled, sometimes the only way to win is to break all the rules. Above them, Earth's surface remained a toxic wasteland, uninhabitable to Council technology. But below, humanity lived on, growing stronger, waiting for the day they could reclaim their world. And across the galaxy, their stories spread, a beacon of hope for every species that dared to dream of freedom. We chose death, Admiral Stone said finally, but not our death. We chose the death of tyranny, the death of submission, the death of fear. And in that choice, we found something the Council never expected. What's that? Marcus asked. Stone looked at the images of their thriving underground world, at the reports of rebellion spreading across the galaxy, and smiled. We found immortality.